David Matlin. You're watching Insight Magazine. Over 1.5 million Israeli Arabs reside in the country, about 20% of the population. Exempt from compulsory military service, they still enjoy the same rights as other Israelis. Yet these citizens feel marginalized, and Israel strives to integrate them by urging them to join the military, Israel's great melting pot. A recent project focused on Arab Christians. And just like the Druze or Bedouins, an increasing number of Christians now volunteer to the Israel Defense Force. Following the announcement of this program, a large part of the Israeli Arab leadership protested. In their eyes, these Christians who enlist betray the Arab cause. Well, here's me, Christian, Arab, and IDF soldier. A report by Michael Blum for I-24 News.
لا ندري كيف يفكرون بمثل هذا التفكير أن يجندوا العرب مسيحيين ومسلمين. يجب أن تفرض الخدمة العسكرية على جزء من أبناء شعبنا كما فعلتم بالخمسينات. اليوم شعبنا موحد أكثر وواعي أكثر ومدرك أكثر لخطورة الموقف من أجل الحفاظ على هويتنا وامتناننا الوطني، من أجل الحفاظ على ما تبقى من أرضنا.
We're in Sachnin, an Arab village in northern Israel. Christians and Muslims stand side by side. All are Israeli Arabs. They're here to express their anger and denounce calls for the military enlistment of Christians. In the street, the staging of a scene. A youngster disguised as an Israeli soldier brutalizes a Palestinian prisoner. These protesters may have Israeli citizenship, yet it's the Palestinian flag they proudly wave, as if to underscore their own identity.
By encouraging Palestinian Christians to go to the army now, they want to isolate Christians as not being Arabs, as not belonging to the Arab nation. We consider ourselves Palestinian people, and we want to reject and to defeat this Zionist project.
This so-called Zionist project is the new campaign launched by the IDF to attract more and more Christians, a campaign that disturbs and divides.
My aim here is to make sure that no one approaches the base, to prevent danger, to prevent any armed person from being in this area, in general to control and protect the base.
Tamer Ashkar is a sniper. This 19-year-old youth is doing his military service at this base, north of the West Bank. Here, he's the only one wearing a cross around his neck.
Everyone says I'm an Israeli Arab, but it is not true. I am an Israeli Christian who speaks Arabic. I decided to enlist because my brother was in the army, and when I used to see him coming home in his uniform, I thought it was great. Not to do my military service is like not giving enough to my country.
Like all Israeli Arabs, Tamer is not obliged to join the army. However, he decided to join this fighting unit for at least 3 years. In case of war, he'll be among the first on the front line.
I am convinced that he greatly contributes to understanding between soldiers of different faith and his importance to my unit. He contributes to the integration of everyone in the society. I am aware of the difficulties he faces and that of other Christians in the army. To me, he's a pioneer.
It's hard. This is not obvious. Here I am in uniform. This is my job, and I'm proud of it. When I get home, I am proud too. Besides, I have not asked permissions to go home in civilian clothes. I stay in uniform. But sometimes there are people who seek to cause me trouble, who argue with me because I'm a soldier. Never mind, I'm proud of what I do.
He may have a cross tattooed on his arm, but Tamer does not feel different from his brothers in arms. The army is a second family for him.
Welcome.
His parents are also very proud. On Facebook, Tamer is not afraid to pose in his IDF uniform. In his family, to do one's military service is primarily a duty.
Et ici, c'est un certificat
Here is a certificate which marks the end of the sniper course.
d'élite. En Israël, chacun
In Israel, everyone has the right to do military service,
a donné au pays où il vit
to give part of his life to the country where he lives,
pour s'intégrer bien dans la
to
société.
integrate well into society,
On habite dans l'État d'Israël,
because we are living in the state of Israel,
d'être israélien,
and we are proud to be
il
Israeli.
bien donner à ce pays,
We like to give to the country, so that in return it will give us rights.
donner de retour nos droits.
In Israel, military service is compulsory at the age of 18 years, 2 years for girls and 3 for boys. Except for Arab citizens of Israel, they number more than 1.5 million, or 20% of the population. Among them are 130,000 Christians. Last year, only 100 Christians joined the army. This figure is increasing, but it's still not enough for the IDF. The army launched a campaign to encourage the community to enlist.
We organize various activities to prepare for the Army. Seminars, briefings, meetings with specialists who explain all the options open to them in the Army.
Nazareth in northern Israel, the country's largest Arab city, 75,000 inhabitants, 1/3 of whom are Christians. According to the Gospels, this is the place where Jesus, Joseph, and Mary lived. There are only a handful of the faithful in this small Greek Orthodox church. Father Gabriel Nadaf leads the prayers in Arabic.
I'm not an Arab, not that being an Arab is an insult. It is an identity that we recognize, but I am not an Arab. What's the problem? Someone is going to decide for me what my identity is? I'm a traitor? I want to decide my own identity. No one will impose it on me by force.
Shocked by the situation of Christians in the Middle East since the Arab revolutions, Father Nadaf unashamedly displays his support for Israel.
I found that the situation of Christians in Israel is the best in the Middle East. This is the only place in the Middle East where Christians, at least what remains of them, are safe.
In 2012, Father Nadaf created the Forum for Enlistment of Christians. He encourages young Christians to wear the uniform of the IDF. A controversial figure, he makes Israeli news headlines. He does not hesitate to be linked to Israeli authorities, as here with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But Gabriel Nadaf is a troublesome priest. His stand in favor of the State of Israel shocks the Israeli Arab community. Insults, death threats, he receives these daily. There's a price on his head.
It's in published research on the internet that there's a $300,000 reward for the one who kills me. Here they say, your end is death. Enlist for the army of occupation. Traitor, you're the traitor priest, an agent for the Zionists. Enlist for the army of occupation.
The threats are taken seriously. With this camera installed under his window, Father Nadaf is under police surveillance round the clock. He can contact the police at any time.
It is an automatic bracelet in case of emergency. I have to press it if something happens to me. I press and the police are supposed to arrive within a few minutes.
Last December, one of his sons was attacked and beaten by a group of young people. If he's worried about his children, Gabriel Nadaf does not express it. Christian support of the IDF has divided Israeli Arabs. They tend to more and more identify with the Palestinian cause. To them, these soldiers are traitors. In this video posted on the internet, the Palestinian singer attacks Druze, Bedouins, and Israeli Arabs who join the army.
قولي راضي عن حالك قولي فخور بحالك عم بتقلب سيدك بترابه هجروا أهله وناسه ذبحوله مرته وأحبابه ولسه بدك تخدم.
A few miles from Nazareth, the village of Rameh and its 3,500 Christian faithful. This morning, Basel Gattas greets the faithful at the end of the Mass. He's the only Christian member of the Israeli parliament. In this Greek Orthodox church dating back to the 19th century, the minister of parliament feels at home. He presents us to the priest, his cousin.
We Christians, we like to live in peace. And we have relatives in the Arab country, so it's not easy to fight. But we are very obedient to the state of Israel. I mean, we are not against anything except if it's bad for us.
We don't go to the army because this is an army of occupation. They occupy our people. They kill. They are violent against our people. So all this together makes us against.
So much so that he directly attacks Gabriel Nadaf, his pet peeve. This minister of the parliament has even demanded that Nadaf be expelled from the church.
Such traitors in the history exist. People who sell their soul to those who want to use it for achieving political agenda, like the Israeli government in these circumstances.
Mitzpeh Ramon in the middle of the Negev desert. Today is a great day for Yasmin. The 19-year-old Christian girl will become an officer. Her family has come especially to attend the ceremony.
Of course we are proud. She's my oldest daughter. She was rewarded by the president when she was in the army.
Yasmin grew up in Akko, a city where Jews and Arabs coexist. The young woman went to school together with Jews, so joining the army was obvious. Officer's rank, a blessing.
I'm very moved. It's a moment that I've always dreamed of. I always wanted to get as high as possible and give the maximum I could. What I can give, I try to give the best way possible.
The army aims to enlist 1,000 Christian soldiers, but numbers are still very far off. These young soldiers wearing the cross are a minority. For the majority of Israeli Arabs, the relationship with Israel is ambiguous. Some see themselves as second-class citizens, others as Palestinians living inside Israel. This population has yet to really integrate into Israeli society. Almost 70 years after receiving Israeli citizenship, will these Arabs become citizens like others with the same rights and the same duties? that's all for today's episode. Thank you for being with us. Remember, you can find all of our shows on our website, i24news.tv. We'll see you again next week with a brand new edition of Insight, only on i24 News.